Hello, everyone. Welcome to our New York City webinar from Walks and Devour Tours. I'll give it just another moment for people to filter in here, and we will kick off a little introduction. You can see we've got a good number of people already joined. Thank you all for joining us. Right now, I'm joining you from Boston, or the Boston area anyway, where it is freezing cold, just like I'm sure it is in New York. We had a nice warm spell last week, and now we're paying for it. Okay, I see a few more joining, and I'll give it about 10 more seconds, and we'll kick off our next in our series. We've had a few European destinations, and this is our first American destination where we're having the experts tell us about New York City during the holidays. Lots of people are planning trips to New York or the holiday period, and we're going to be learning all about how to do that best and the tips and tricks from our local experts joining us from New York. First of all, my name is Stephen Otto. I am the founder of Walks Tours and president of Walks and Devour, and I'm so happy today to introduce you to some friends of ours from New York City. And before we get started, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction about the company. Many of you may not know Walks and Devour. So Walks is a small group tour company that started in Rome many years ago. And now we give tours in about almost 30 destinations around the world, give or take. And we do exclusive, beautifully designed small group tours. We also offer access to some of the world's most iconic landmarks and attractions, including in New York City, where we run tours at the Statue of Liberty, Grand Central Terminal, and the Met Museum, among many other places, Greenwich Village, and some of the best spots to go. So that's Walks Tours, and our sister company, Devour Tours. Devour was begun in Spain and actually in Madrid also a number of years ago, and also now all over the world in both Europe and North America. And they connect curious travelers with local food and people in a way that helps culture thrive. So you can join 200,000 happy customers to feed your curiosity. These are food tours, cooking classes, gourmet food and wine visits, the best way to taste a city. And we do also offer food tours in New York. So with that, let's meet our experts today. We have three experts, people who I knew when I lived in New York. So I lived in New York for 5 years when we launched Walks of New York back in 2012 and 13. And at the time, I got a chance to meet some of these wonderful people. So we have Matt Kepnes, or otherwise known as Nomadic Matt. And it's great to have him here today. He's the founder, writer, and travel blogger at Nomadic Matt. Welcome, Matt. Matt, where are you joining us from today? He's on mute, joining us from
myself. I'm joining from New York in my apartment in the Upper East Side.
Upper East Side. There we go. All right. First shots fired. Then we also have Nikki Padilla Rivera joining us from Atlas Obscura Ventures. And oh my gosh, I think I can tell where you are. But why don't you tell
literally
us?
Next to the Brooklyn Bridge, and this is an actual backdrop. It's not a picture, so you're going to see people coming and taking photos around me.
That's awesome. Wow. Thank you for joining us from there. Right on location, like a journalist. I'm not on location in Central Park in the snow, although it would be nice. Although I bet for Nikki, it feels like she's sitting in the snow because it is a cold, windy day down by the river. Maybe we can get to that in our tips for tour people visiting New York in December. And last but not least, Courtney Christine, a talent manager and influencer partnerships from Vox Media. Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. Courtney, where are you joining us from today?
Hi, everyone. I am in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, where you can see the sun is setting at 4:04 p.m. Good time.
Fantastic. Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn has a must on any trip to New York. Hopefully, on short trips, I feel like sometimes people think that Brooklyn's so far away, but it's so easy to get there. So we could definitely touch on that. And before we kick off, I just wanted to say we will be having a little special offer at the end of the webinar. We are also recording this, so you'll be able to share the webinar to your friends. So please do so after we publish that. And you can find it on YouTube, and we'll send the emails about it as well. And with that, we have some great questions coming in. I just want to kind of set the ground rules here. We're going to answer many of the questions that those of you who registered sent in to us. We'll be talking about New York in the holidays and many other things about New York. So I'm going to go ahead and close this presentation and start with that. The other thing to think about is there's a chat section off to the side there, a little bubble that says chat. You can click on that and type into the search box. That'll come to all of us, and you can ask questions and additional questions and follow-up questions, and we'll be answering those as we go as well. So all of us can answer, and some of our Vox team are also on standby to help us answer questions. And I see Haley is already asking them where people are joining us from. Wow, we've got a good mix from all as far as Newfoundland and Labrador, Alberta, Canada, Manchester, England. Wow, that's a good start. Definitely not too many New Yorker area. So that's great. Raleigh, North Carolina, Fort Lauderdale, from Italy. Wonderful. Well, welcome to all of you, St. Louis, Missouri, and more and more. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick poll here just to kick us off. How many of you have taken a tour with Vox or Devour before? If you go ahead on the interactions section, you'll see a poll pop up, and you can quickly answer that. It'll just help us know, how many of you have interacted with us in some of our destinations around the world. And then I'm going to jump into the questions. So whether you've taken a tour with us in Rome or in the Colosseum or at the Vatican, maybe in Paris at the Louvre, maybe in London at the Tower of London, Westminster Abbey, or in Niagara Falls, Canada, at the Statue of Liberty. Maybe you're coming back to New York for a second time. So I'm seeing a good mix here, actually. We've got at least more than half of you have taken tours with us, which is great. And some people who are just learning about us for the first time or haven't yet had a chance to take a tour. So that's a great mix. And I will end that poll. So first question here, we're talking about New York. We're talking about the holidays. So we got to ask right out of the gates, this is probably the most common question we got. How do you start to think about planning your itinerary to avoid crowds in the holiday period? I know that there's going to be crowds around things you want to see, but what are some things you might do to avoid crowds? And we'll start with you, Matt, since you're off mute and you're the first one on the box here.
Well, you're going to find the biggest crowds, on the lights of, on, not Madison. Fifth Avenue, where they have all the lights. I forget the exact street. With all the shops. And around Bryant Park and Union Square. So where the big things are. So look for activities, in Brooklyn and Queens and more local neighborhoods. So in the East Village, you'll find fewer crowds. You look for the Christmas themed bars and Nomad or the West Village or the Lower East Side. There you'll find fewer crowds. And then there's a lot of activities, in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Botanical Garden always does something. You have Becker Heights, that does see a lot of people. The New York Botanical Gardens up in Queens does something. So trying to find stuff out of Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah, definitely. Nikki, you concur? Any others you want to suggest in here for the holidays?
Yeah, I'd say it depends on what you're looking to do. So let's say you are interested in the Rockettes, but it doesn't have to be the Rockettes. You just want to see a Christmas show. There are tons of nutcrackers all over the city, from really small, high schools doing it or children's centers. There are tons of burlesque nutcrackers for those looking a little X-rated. There's the ones that are very famous. And then there are the ones in a small hole in the wall theater in the East Village. Drunk Texts is a really fun, it's a drunk Christmas carol. It's just in a bar basement. It's a really fun show. They do it every other year. Or if you want to see, the markets, there are tons of markets around the city that are done locally where there are artisan markets that you can go see around Christmas time. You want to go to the Tree, Central Park, you can go to Prospect Park in Brooklyn. They also have a tree and it's a beautiful park. So there's almost an equivalent of a non-tourist version of all the classic stuff you want to see.
Wow, Nikki, some rapid fire, great ideas there. Love that. Courtney, we got some as well. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I love all of those ideas a lot. I would say my hack to avoiding crowds is to plan your days ahead of time. So know where you're going to go. This ties into another question I saw, which is to take the subway or to not take the subway. I think the subway is a great way of avoiding crowds. There's nothing worse than getting into a cab on Fifth Avenue, going uptown and trying to get to the Christmas lights. What I like to do is wake up in the morning and pick attractions that I want to see, maybe at off-peak times. So it might not be as twinkly and bright, but like maybe going to see the Rockefeller tree like midday might be a little bit more of a thinner crowd, and then planning ahead your reservations accordingly. So just like know where you're going, know what time you're trying to hit, because there are peak times and off-peak times with crowds, I would say.
That's great advice. And you actually bring up a really good point that crowds aren't necessarily just people in a space, but also the cars on the road. And New Yorkers know when you can legitimately get across town or up or downtown in a car versus a subway. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a much better time getting there on the subway. So, especially in the holidays where things tend to slow down even more, it's harder to cross a street in New York in the holidays if it's been raining or snowing recently in the winter. So that may slow things down for cars too. And hence the subway just becomes that much more attractive. And it's somewhat warmer. I don't know. What do you think? Is it warmer in the subway? Okay. Yeah, it's warmer. Good. Yeah, I know there was some debate about that, but all righty. Well, that's a great start here. Now, let's talk a bit about restaurants because probably the two most important questions you get about New York is where do we go to what do we want to see and what do we want to eat. So I'm going to dive right into restaurants just to make sure everybody gets to hear some. What are your favorite foodie venues? And this can be Christmas themed or not, or holiday themed or not. I want to just kind of get your favorites right out of the gate so we can lock some in for our travelers. And we'll start back with you, Courtney. Keep going since you're already on a roll.
Okay, so I'll just go Christmas style to start because that's the theme. There's a classic bar restaurant in Gramercy called Rolf's. It's a German cuisine, and it's just over the top holiday decor. It can be hard to get into, so again, try and go with like an off hour, like for a 3 p.m. start your night cocktail or something like that. But it really is worth the wait. It's great. I know of a couple more places. There's a place called Monkey Bar that has kind of a cozy classic vibe on the Upper East Side. Gramercy Tavern is a great American farm to table spot in Gramercy. They typically have a holiday tasting menu, which is pretty delicious. If you're going for like a classic steakhouse vibe, which is like inherently Christmas feeling, in my opinion, Keen's Steakhouse in Midtown is really great. And then a favorite of mine in the West Village, if you find yourself in downtown for like classic Italian cuisine, is La Artusi. It's fabulous. They have a great winter squash ravioli that I love.
Wow. All right. Getting all the way into the dishes. Love it. Let's keep going back to Nikki here. What do you got for us for holiday and or just favorites indoor dining for New York City?
Well, Courtney covered all the great holiday vibe ones. So I'll give some Midtown ones because the area of Times Square is a little bit of a food desert. So I love Tam Tav. It's a kosher Uzbeki restaurant up 2 flights of stairs in the Diamond District. It's phenomenal. You look it up. I'll write it in the chat. You really just keep going up the stairs. Don't worry, it's there, and it's super good and like huge portions. It's great for a group. Don't over order. You could keep ordering as you go. They're very disappointed if you don't finish your meal. There's also 2 great food court styles, which is really nice when you're out on the go. There is Urban Space Vanderbilt near Grand Central Terminal, and it has a bunch of different kiosks from all over the city, different places in Brooklyn. And then also Koreatown is right around the corner from Macy's, and there is a Food Gallery 32, and they have amazing food options there, all different Korean food, and you can sit, you could take your time, you could just get a tea, you could get a full meal. It's a great place. There's bathrooms. It's a great stop.
Fantastic. And Matt, you got some as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I love to eat in New York City. I think it's one of the best food cities in the world. You know, since we're talking about food, I won't mention Christmas bars, but there is a lot of Christmas bars in the city that also serve food. But in terms of just where to eat, I think people sleep on the Upper East Side. I mean, I'm not biased because I live here. The whole food has a lot of good places, but because the whole city has a lot of good places. But the Upper East Side has some really great places that people really don't get to because it's kind of like far removed from everything. So that's a really good place to avoid the crowds. There's a good all-you-can-eat sushi place called Yuka, which is actually good. It's not like bag quality fish or small portions. It's really good.
And you love your sushi.
Yeah,
You would
there's a
know.
great place called NR, Flex Mussels for
Oh yeah,
seafood.
love Flex Mussels.
A new Thai place just opened up on 2nd Ave called Ta Praya, which is like really authentic Northern Thai food. There's just like tons of places there. Then of course, Rolf's and Gramercy Tavern for Christmas vibes. K-Town for everything. Like I like a lot of stuff in the East Village. The Bao is really good for Chinese food. Really, you can really never go wrong with hardly anything. I think.
Give me a couple of your Christmas bars too.
Well, Miracle on 9th is the classic Christmas bar.
Miracle on 9th. I love
that. What's that? Oscar Wilde's is another bar that does like a really good holiday theme. Lil's on 17th does a really good holiday theme. In case you don't want to remember all these things, really, like I find Time Out has a good list of food, like Christmas themed bars and restaurants. And then there's Secret NYC, which is like an Instagram account that kind of keeps track of all this stuff. So you can see, like last year we had a Hanukkah bar for the first time, which was really interesting. It was in the West Village. Will they do that again? Maybe, probably. But like these websites are good to keep track of like what's coming and going. What's that beer garden in the Lower East Side, like that does like the little outside huts?
Oh, the one from Cologne.
Yeah.
That not the
Lorelai's.
Yeah.
Lorelai's, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's like just all these random pop-ups. Like I remember going to one Hawaiian like tiki themed Christmas bar in the Lower East Side last year. So stuff changes every year. So it's good to just kind of like make Google your friend.
Yeah, and you just reminded me there's another one that does some nice kind of holiday, is the Standard over there in the meatpacking. I don't know, they have the ice skating rink out front and kind of a winter beer garden set up that's really fun. Can be crowded though. I mean, again, avoiding crowds is difficult. We just talked about that, but thank you. Those are some really great ideas. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what are some free things to do. We've hit on some restaurants. What would you guys recommend that isn't going to break the bank? What's some things you could do that won't cost a bunch of money? Free or very, very economical, budget friendly?
I'll start first since I feel like we start and we keep rotating. There's so much free stuff. All the Christmas markets. Bryant Park is free. Union Square is free. Dagger Heights, where the neighborhood in Brooklyn that does this whole light show every year, that's free. You can just hang out in this, like the skating rink areas. Like there's usually some good vibes there. That's free. Walking on Fifth Avenue. What is it? Fifth Avenue, where all the lights are. Yeah, I don't go shopping up there enough to remember. But that's free. Rock Center is free. But that's just what comes to mind immediately.
Love it. Okay. Nikki, you want to give us some free or very economical things to do?
Views. I mean, I know it's really cold, but taking the ferry, the New York City ferry, is currently subsidized and still pretty inexpensive. And you can take it all around the city. You have some amazing, just the skyline from a boat is magical. So you can take that all around. Views from different parks. You go down to Brooklyn to Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is nearby where I am. Amazing views of the city. You go to Gantry Park in Queens. You have amazing views of the city. So there's a lot of places where you can get like that epic skyline view if you're looking to maybe do that instead of going to, I don't know, some tower and looking at the view from there.
Fantastic. Courtney, what do you got for us?
Love the ferry. I love a cathedral. They feel very Christmas to me. My favorite is St. Patrick's Cathedral on Fifth Avenue in between like 50th and 51st. It's free to walk in there and mosey around. It's absolutely beautiful. There's another one on Upper West Side called St. John the Divine, which is great. But any sort of like cathedral tour, the Christmas vibe is always abundant at those kind of places.
Fantastic. And you guys have mentioned, a few of you have mentioned the Christmas windows, and I think the ones I mean, there's quite a few of them now. It goes back, I think Saks and Macy's sort of began that tradition on the Fifth Avenue. You also have Bergdorf that does it, Bloomingdale's. So there's a number of different ones that are kind of up and down. So you start all the way up at the top essentially by the plaza, make your way down Fifth Avenue, and you should be able to see a lot of those, if not beautifully decorated windows, then often the buildings themselves, including, which is the one that wraps itself in a present? Is that
Macy's.
Macy's is a present? Okay, yeah. I know that some of them do different kind of present colors. Oh, and Saks as well. Yeah, St. John's. Chris is telling us some. Don't forget about the chat, everyone. If you want to add, see the Standard Beer Garden. I think Isaac did that. So yeah, there's some good recommendations coming in here on the chat. So feel free to ask more questions. Oh, Cartier, good point, Dan. Yeah, they do a big present as well. It's always one of my favorites. That's the one I'm thinking of. Courtney, of course, recommending the Eater and Thrillist list for things to do. Definitely highly recommend those as well. All right, so let's go ahead and progress on to more holiday ideas, and let's talk about some of the events not to miss. I know you guys have mentioned markets. Are there any other kind of specific events that people should be looking to put on their calendar for the holidays? I mean, how about let's start this way. The most famous event happening around the holidays would be New York, famous Times Square, New Year's Eve. Have you guys ever done it? And is it worth it? Because I feel like that's got to be on people's minds.
I have an anecdote. It's funny you bring this up. That is number one on my mother's bucket list. And
there you go.
Like, since I moved here 10 years ago, she will not drop it. And I refuse. And I personally think back in the day, it would have been wonderful. But from what I hear, it's really quite the beating. I think there are ways to experience it while not being in the thick of it, because those people that are standing out there have been standing out there all day, and you hear these crazy, wacky stories of how they pull that off. But I think if you're able to kind of like find a vantage point in a building nearby or something, that would be great. But I am of the belief and opinion that there are other things to do in New York on New Year's Eve that are worth your time.
Love that. Yeah, Chris is telling us that the square fills up starting at 8 in the morning, and yeah, it can be brutal to stand there all day long. Not to mention other issues that may arise as you wait around. Okay, Nikki, what about you? What do you think of is it worth going out there, or are there other events that you recommend trying to fill in your time?
I don't know that I feel it's worth it either. That being said, I did it once when I was a little girl. We had friends who lived right in Times Square, and they had a special pass. So I have this vivid memory of like we had to get out way up above, like by Central Park. And we had to walk through all the checkpoints. This is pre 9/11. So they were like patting us down, and we had to show our little card that we had a residence pass, and we had several checkpoints. And we got there and we went up to our friend's apartment, and I got a sip of champagne. We had snacks. We were nice and warm and cozy. At about 1:45, we made our way down to Times Square and just caught the edge of the crowd. And I will say there's nothing like counting down from 10 with a million other people that physically fit in those streets. It's very memorable. That being said, I always say if you're going to go out for New York City and New Year's Eve in New York City, you're going to spend so much money. So just either accept it or don't plan on going at any restaurant you do. There's no hack. There's no way to do it cheap. It is expensive. Everyone has like $200 for the night, $100 for the night. Everything's an open bar. Everything's like a restaurant and a 5-course meal. It's very hard to avoid that. But I would say wherever you end up, I always just try and find a friend having a party. So I do every year. But you want to end up outside. If you're anywhere within, like close to Midtown, even go to a small bar, anywhere within like Hell's Kitchen or Murray's Hill, just go outside at midnight and you will hear and you can count down with everyone else. So you can kind of feel that experience.
That's a great recommendation. How about you, Matt? Have you done Times Square New Year's Eve or something similar?
Nope, I will not. I hate crowds and I like to go to the bathroom. So I'm not.
That is one of the challenges.
Unless someone had like a special access pass, where you can look down from one of the buildings. It's not on my bucket list. I don't really care. I actually tried not to be in New York City during New Year's Eve for the reasons Nikki talked about. It's very expensive. You go to a bar and you realize, wait, I go to this bar all the time, but I've just paid an $80 cover to get in for no other reason than it's December 31st. And I've done a couple of New Year's here, but few and far between.
Got it.
The last one I did here was like 2016, maybe.
Okay.
Did we do one together when we lived here? I can't remember.
Yeah, not at Times Square.
Parties though. The other year I went to one. It was at an Indian restaurant on the Upper East Side, and it was disco themed. And it was maybe $80 for the night, but it had food, it had drinks. It was fun. We were there for hours.
That sounds like.
I always like a house party. If you can find a house party, do it. But New Year's, don't get any advice.
All right. What about, let's say it's a really cold day and you want to do stuff indoors. What are some great indoor sightseeing or museums, some favorites that you want to see when it's really cold out and you want to get bundled up indoors?
You can never go wrong with the Met, but I think the Museum of the City of New York is a great one. Not a lot of people go there. It's above the Guggenheim on like 94th or 5th. It's a great interactive museum of the history of New York City. They have great displays. You follow these characters through displays. Lots of audio-visual stuff. Just one floor is the permanent exhibit and gives you a really good detailed history of the city up until 9/11. That's a museum. The Lower East Side Tenement Museum is also another good one. Theodore Roosevelt's birthplace. It's like an hour tour. Very interesting. It's near Nomad. No one goes there. It's free to get into too because it's a national park site. So
nice. Oh, we'll chalk another one up for free things to do. Nikki, do you have any favorite indoor activities for the holidays and cold days? I like what you're doing, practicing not what you preach.
Hot cocoa outside. There is another museum that people don't often go to, the Queen's Art Museum in Flushing Meadow Park. They have a panorama that was from the World's Fair in 1964, and it is to scale. Oh. Every single building in New York City is in this map, and you walk around it. It's massive. It's really cool to see. And you can even, for my grandpa's birthday one year, we bought him the deed to his house on the maps. Literally every single building is represented. So you can really get binoculars and see your little hotel on there.
That's so fun. I've never been there. That's one I'll put on my list. How about you, Courtney? Favorite indoor spots and museums?
Yeah, museums, obviously love the Met. I know Vox does a great tour. I like the Frick.
Yes.
That's another great one. And then I love to there's obviously a lot of movies are filmed here. If you do research on where a certain movie that you love was filmed and going and sitting in that cafe, one of my favorite movies is You've Got Mail, and I figured out where that cafe was where Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan met for the first time, and you can go and sit right there where they filmed it. So do research. There's stuff like that all over, and it's cool because you can just like live your movie dreams.
Yeah, that sounds fun. The Friends building and the Seinfeld Cafe and all that stuff. There's some great ones for sure. You can go some of them you can go inside. I don't know if all of them you can, but those are great ideas. Okay, here's another one for you guys. What do you think about like safety tips for traveling around the city during the holidays? Any kind of things we should be thinking about? And if you don't have any, that's okay. Just shout them out.
City, anywhere in the world, if you are in a place where there are lots of tourists, where it's really crowded, watch your pockets, watch your backpack. You know, I always have a bag and I keep it under my arm, but no like more severe than if you're in the other places. It's just that's tourists will attract pickpockets. So that basic stuff. But what's great about New York City is there are so many people, so you are never alone. And it is very easy to, you'll realize if you're somewhere you shouldn't be, and it's very easy to just turn around and walk back the way you came. You just always want to be around people. You could take the subway at 2:00 in the morning and there will be people. There will be at least one car with people. So just find the people and always be with the people. And if you're losing crowds, go back to the crowds.
That's a great recommendation. That's a great advice. Any other advice on safety for you guys?
I mean, I would just, I mean, echo what Nikki said. Like, as long as you're around people, you're gonna be fine. And then just watch your stuff.
Definitely.
And if it's 2 a.m. and there's one subway car that's empty, but the other ones are full, it's empty for a reason. Probably something weird. There's either a smell in there or something's going on. Just don't go into the empty car.
All right. Very good. Now, this is one that everybody wants to hit up in the holidays and the cold days in New York. Favorite spots for ice skating? I know there's a bunch of rinks around the city, all over New York's boroughs. Where do you guys like to ice skate? Where do you know people like to ice skate? Keep us going, Matt, if you got one off the top of your head.
I mean, well, I know Bryant Park has a rink and Central Park has a rink, but those are the only two I personally know. I think there's one in Brooklyn too. But I'll let Courtney or Nikki feel that question.
Yeah, there's Woolman Rink in Central Park is great. They've really done a lot with that space. I know I was also, I think that might be it. I know you can skate around Rockefeller, but again, to avoid crowds, that's probably the most insane. So try and go off peak times. I like the Bryant Park rink because you can also shop.
I love that.
Yeah, I like the Bryant Park rink for people watching. I just find it's easier to people watch and you get a lot of characters there. I would just say those are kind of the main skating rinks for holidays. I would just say look at the prices ahead of time and just know what it's going to cost you. I think people wait a long time in line. They get all the way up there and they realize you're paying for rentals, plus you're paying for a locker, plus you're paying for the skating. And it might very well be worth it, but just know ahead of time so you don't wait all that time to get up there and then be upset by the price. It's pricey.
It's good to know. Thank you, guys. How about now? I know we don't have a lot of kids here, but maybe you've got families coming to visit. Give us some kid-friendly recommendations. And I know, Nikki, you're a tour guide, so you probably get this question all the time. What are some kid-friendly things to do in New York at any time of year, but particularly in the winter?
There are tons of shows for kids. So New Victory Theater in the theater district, they do a lot of kids programs where you get to go on stage and interact with the stuff. Lincoln Center has a lot of very economical kids programs where it's very interactive. Teatro Sea is a children's puppet theater in the Lower East Side. It's a Puerto Rican theater, very specific, but they do bilingual programming. BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, They have tons of kids shows. Like all these major theaters have children's shows. And then I would also say, like, if you go like for food and places to eat, local breweries are a great place for kids. I bring my toddler and baby all the time to our local brewery. Maybe you want to check it out first and walk by, but in general, I've found breweries to be very, very kid friendly in the city. And it's a place where you can bring your child and have a beer, which isn't super common in New York City. You could also find local kid shops, and they're great places. They have events, like there's Wild in Greenpoint, actually by Courtney. It's a great kid shop, and they have events. They have puppet shows, they have classes, and you can also ask them for local recommendations. You can walk into a kid shop and be like, is there a kid-friendly place to eat around here? Is there like a place I can go with kids? And usually the staff will know.
Fantastic. Wow, that's a bunch of great advice. So you guys, Courtney, Matt, you got some kid-friendly spots, favorites?
I'm kidless. I don't think anything I say would beat Nikki's advice. So listen to her. That was fabulous.
What she says.
And
How about you, Matt?
I have no idea. You have kids, Stephen. You chime in.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, we try to stay away from New York. I mean, we've gone, but I don't think anything worked particularly well with kids. Now that I have two, I'm definitely gonna wait on that until they get a bit older. But thank you, Nikki. Those are some good advice. Okay, where about do you think we need? This question came up a lot. Recommendations for where to make reservations. So that could be any kind of pre-booking. Obviously, pre-booking your walks, guided tours of the Met or Grand Central, down at Statue. That's great. Devoured food tours. Please pre-book those. But other things that need reservations or thinking about booking in advance.
Yeah, I think reservations are super important these days. Unfortunately, walking into a restaurant, and especially if you're more than like a group of three, is really difficult. You're gonna be faced with a long wait, especially during the holidays. So I utilize OpenTable and Resi all the time. They're getting better and better about expanding their portfolio of restaurants. It's really the best tool. But I love to, like, for example, if you're going to the Rockefeller Tree and you know you're going to go see it at like 4 or 5 p.m. and you're going to want to sit down and have a meal or a drink after, look on those sites in that area and try and snag something. Couple days in advance would be best, but I found some really great Christmas restaurants around the Rockefeller Midtown area. There's one called Valerie that's fabulous. When you walk in, it's a massive wall with wreaths and it's their bar. It's really pretty. There's a lot of pubs around that area. There's one called the Elgin that I just went to that's already completely decorated that I love. So I would just say definitely try and have like reservations, even if you don't know, you might not make it, just have one because you'll thank yourself.
I mean, I think you should make reservations for everything. I've started making reservations for stuff now, and I'm already like probably a week behind. Most of like the Nutcracker already sold out. I'm trying to do Christmas Carol at the Merchant House, mostly sold out. Rolf's probably only going to have like the 3 o'clocks left. A lot of these Christmas restaurants or Christmas bars do sell out pretty fast, especially if they're really popular. The ice skating rinks, I would probably book at least a week in advance. But if you want to see the Rockettes or any of the big shows, I would start booking that stuff now. Otherwise, like, you probably will get a ticket last minute, but it's going to be like the worst seat, I was surprised, like, just how, like, the Nutcracker is basically mostly sold out.
So maybe think about some of the recommendations that Nikki provided for some of the off-Broadway or off-Broadway theater. Maybe you can't take the whole family to the X-rated ones, but maybe you can find tickets to some of these other ones. That sounds great. Nikki, you got some more recommendations for reservations?
Yeah, I would just echo Matt and say, just make a reservation no matter for everything, for all the restaurants. And if we could send this message to my mother-in-law, just make the reservation. If you don't mind showing up to a restaurant and potentially waiting 30 minutes to an hour, then that's fine, you know, and you can show up and you can put in your name and you can wait around. But if the thought of that drives you bonkers, make the reservations. I'll even, when my in-laws are in town, I will call up day of and just call restaurants, and I'll get everyone to agree on 3 restaurants, and I'll just call them up and say, hey, do you have room for a party of 5 anytime tonight for dinner? And very often I'll get a reservation. I will sometimes, if you're like mine and our family can't agree or they want to make reservations, I'll just call and make the reservations anyway. And if I think we're not going to head there, I'll try an hour before at least to give them a call and say, just, you know, we're not going to make it. That's fine. Just make it. If you don't want to have to wait, even if it's something for lunch, for breakfast, just make it. Just make it.
That's great advice. And yeah, I mean, I second that. It's tough to just walk into places. I mean, even at off hours, I feel like in the holidays, off hours are much busier than the normal time rest of the year. You know, people eat earlier or they eat later. So it just kind of, you know, all the people try to find their space and it's just not there. So not every place takes a reservation in New York, but definitely pre-book your restaurants, even, you know, some of the activities that we've talked about. You can book ice skating time nowadays in advance, so that's worth doing at some of the busier rinks. And just check their websites. There's so many different activities and events, and like we've mentioned, there's a lot of things that you can do that don't need reservations, like the Christmas markets, food halls, breweries, things like that. And, you know, of course, looking for last minute tickets. You can wait at a Broadway show out front. Oftentimes they'll release more tickets a day of, or the ticket booths. Any Broadway fans of the 3 of you guys who want to tell us some upcoming Broadway shows that might be worth visiting in the next few months?
I haven't seen Broadway in a long
Favorites?
time, but I'm going tonight to see McNeil with Robert Downey Jr.
There you go. There you go. McNeil with Robert Downey Jr. I'd love to see that. That sounds great.
It ends this month apparently. So, but
All right, hurry and get in those last minute.
The Alicia Keys one is supposed to be pretty good. What's that called? Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
It's supposed to be good.
Okay. Any other recent Broadway show goers, or and also ask in the comments or share in the comments if you guys got more. We've got a lot of great advice coming from some of our other colleagues here in the chat. Nikki, Courtney, you guys hit up theater recently? Are you going?
I like straight plays. I don't go see musicals as much. So I'll drop in the chat. MCC Theater is a fantastic new theater, new works. Playwrights Horizons. These are both off Broadway. You can get tickets for under $50 and see phenomenal talent, phenomenal shows.
Yeah, the Public, Joe's Pub as well. I'm sure, Nikki, you're familiar. Yeah. I mean, anything, I'm seeing that TKTS is not well stocked. I typically use them, but also just like joining the lottery. It's just like, it's so easy to win sometimes, and then you get really good seats. I'm not familiar. I'm kind of an old school Broadway person. I'm not familiar with the new upcoming shows, but a ticket to Wicked is pretty easy to get, and honestly, you can't go wrong with Wicked. But yeah, anything on Broadway is going to be great. I just saw a musical called Shucked. It was literally about people in Tampa like shucking corn, and even that was good. So
fantastic. Yeah, Wicked always great live. It might get a little hard to get tickets given that the movie's just coming out. So who knows? It might be a big rush to New York. I think I saw that Ariana Grande went to a performance just the other day. I don't know. You're the one in PR, Courtney. Maybe you could tell us what happened in the news. But I guess she encountered her counterpart live just the other day. But yeah, those are all great recommendations. And you know, you got to get to Broadway. TKTS. I've always liked the Today Tix app as well, where you can sometimes join the online lotteries. That's just what I've used over the years, but you know, it changes all the time. Okay, great. And let's see. Oh, I see some other recommendations. Anybody been to Elf the musical? Chris says it was a hard to get show ticket for last year, and some more recommendations there in the chat for places from our team. All right, now this is a more general question that I'm sure people who are planning their trip or just starting to think about it. Everybody has a different kind of way to take this one, but Matt, we'll start with you. Where do you recommend people stay, particularly in the holidays, but obviously anytime? You know, New York has 5 boroughs and so many neighborhoods in those boroughs. Some favorites where you recommend your friends to stay.
Yeah, I mean, New York City during the holidays is like the highest hotel prices of the year. Especially now that we no longer have, I should say, Airbnb. Rates are just crazy through the roof. So if you don't have hotel points, it's very unlikely you're going to find anything affordable, and that's chain or non-chain place to stay. So I would recommend trying to stay pretty like downtown. Like usually FiDi has cheaper rates than anywhere Midtown, or like Upper East Side or Upper West Side or Brooklyn or Jersey City or Hoboken. Easily accessible by public transportation, but further from the action, so you can't really walk there. But rates, especially post the Airbnb ban, are just very high for hotel rooms. And December is historically always the most expensive month because everyone wants to do, New York City Christmas. So that's where I would sort of suggest going.
And now
hotel
let me ask you,
will go really far. So.
Sure. And let me ask you on the totally other side of that, let's say money's no object. Where do you want to stay?
Money is no object. I mean, that's me personally. I would say it like the Mandarin. I love it.
Okay.
Or like
Columbus Circle, is that?
Yeah, or actually, I'd say the Amman. I mean.
Okay, well, yeah.
I mean, money is an object, right?
Right. That's a great one. How about you, Nikki? What do you think for best neighborhoods to stay, and also maybe your favorite hotel lobby or hotel to stay in if money was no object?
I always recommend Long Island City. I don't know if you could tell yet, but I'm from Queens. Long Island City is great. Some areas are cuter than others. Some are very industrial and not a lot going on, and others are very cute. But in general, you're like a 10-minute subway ride from Times Square, and it's one train. So it's just a very great subway route to be on, and you're going to find cheaper than in Manhattan. Of course, it is still Christmas time, but you'll find a variety of options. If no money were an object, I love One Hotel. The Central Park one is so pretty. And there's some really cute boutique hotels down in Soho, like is it the Manor? Like there's some really pretty like tiny ones down in Soho, Lower East Side.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I will second Long Island City as a budget friendlier. None of these are budget friendly in general if you're going to New York in the holidays, but especially for traveling for work, and that's been a place that as you said, it's right on the subway. It's easy to get everywhere, and oftentimes you can find 25 to 50% less rates than Manhattan. Courtney, you got some favorite hotels and or neighborhoods?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I live in Greenpoint. I'm right across the water from Long Island City, and it's a saving grace. I mean, considering the subway system is so wonderful, like stay away, like stay somewhere out. It might be nice to be able to go home at night away from the craziness. And you can always catch the train back into the city. But there's nothing like a New York City hotel at Christmas. Even I'm a big fan of going and hanging out at a hotel, pretending like you're staying there, but you're really not, and like sitting in the lobby and having a cocktail. So like the Carlisle or the Greenwich Hotel, it's going to feel like, you're Kevin McAllister in Home Alone 2. They're really beautiful this time of year.
Love that. Yeah, that's a great one to watch before you go. And since we're talking about, now you mentioned movies again, any favorite New York films that you want to throw out there? You threw out Home Alone 2. What other great films are set in New York that you guys would tell your friends to watch before they come, or everybody wants to go see where such and such a thing was filmed?
King
Anybody?
Kong. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's true.
No, like Breakfast at Tiffany's, anything like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. How about you guys? Any other New York City must? You've Got Mail, you mentioned. Yeah. Elf. Gotta love that. Nobody's mentioning When Harry Met Sally. How about Harry Met? That's always been one that. Speaking of places where you can go and visit the famous scene, and also a great spot for kosher food. All down on the Lower East Side. Great, lots of great kosher food down there. Russ and Daughter is right there, but the famous scene in Harry Met Sally at Katz's Deli. Got to get over there. I had to throw that in because I know I've got some fans on the line here. Okay, a few other great movies in case you're planning your trip and you're thinking about what movies you need to watch to get you excited. Some other ones, of course, Ghostbusters, the movie The Godfather had a lot of shots in the city. Spider-Man from 2002, West Side Story, Goodfellas, The Avengers, Annie Hall, and The Devil Wears Prada. Just some more to get you guys excited. All righty, so we're almost wrapped up here. If there are other questions, I see a few more coming in. Please shoot them into the chat. Got a couple more minutes, so we'll try to get a couple more in here. Weather and packing. I mean, we talked a little bit about being cold, but anything you should advise for what people should pack for the holidays, or what not to forget or bring home with?
Comfortable walking shoes. Like, yes, New Yorkers, like, we can wear heels and walk up and down the subway stairs in our heels, but like, you don't have to do that. You like, it's okay. No one will judge you. Wear comfortable shoes. You're gonna walk a lot. But people do dress up in the city. So if you want to dress up, if you like to dress up, people dress up. You're never going to be overdressed. And I would also say, keep in mind in terms of weather, the colder it is outside, the hotter it is outside, which is really annoying to pack. But you go onto the subway, you want to be able to easily strip or take off layers. So just keep that in mind when you're planning what you're going to wear in terms of over layers. You're going to want to easily take off your stuff. And then you're in restaurants, they're small. You're trying to put your big parka across the back of your chair. You want stuff that's very easy to take on and off and store.
That's good advice. Absolutely. Matt, any ideas? What do you pack?
Sorry,
You're
I
on mute.
forgot what the unmute thing was. Again, echo Nikki. Comfortable walking shoes, really warm clothes, and that's about it. You know,
It's
all
so
the
cold
money
you need long
need,
underwear. You're wearing
all the money you need, and maybe like some extra space to buy stuff.
lots of space on your credit cards, extra space in your bags.
Yeah.
Yeah. Courtney, any recs there, or any souvenirs you're definitely taking home?
Oh yeah, that's a good tip. Extra room in your suitcase because you'll want to shop. I would just say a good coat. That's Nikki read my mind. You bundle up and then you get down on the subway and you're like dying of a heat stroke. But yeah, a nice coat. It's nice to dress up. People still dress up for the theater and to go to restaurants. And you're going to be walking a lot. A crossbody bag. The ones that are just like this are fall. So anything that goes crossbody is always helpful.
All right, getting the fashion tips from Courtney here.
Oh, and I don't know if people might not know this. You no longer need a Metro card on the subway. If you have Apple Pay on your phone, you don't need a Metro card anymore. Just fun fact.
That's that's a good advice too, for sure. You don't have to bother with the machines. You can go straight in, tap and go, just like it's been on the London Tube for quite some time. And that is a game changer, makes it a lot easier to get in and out of the trains. Not that they've made it that much easier to navigate down there in the tunnels, but and Cassandra, thanks for sharing all the great blog posts from the Walks and Devour blogs. Lots of stuff for people to go back and review after, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Got a couple last things to share, so give me a moment. We're going to just give you guys some info. Please keep in touch with Walks and Devour on social media. You can find us on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. So we're all over. Please follow us there. I'm going to give you guys our last, there we go. This is our special offer for the QR code at checkout. You can scan that, or you can go to that link or use that promo code NYC15 for your 15% off of your New York City tour. And that's a good discount there. We don't do a lot of promo codes at Walks and Devour, so grab that one and share with your friends coming to New York. It's valid until basically for the next week, so limited time offers. Snag that up. A couple other great things. Oh yeah, here we go. These are our social media accounts you can follow here, and check the blogs as well. That's takewalks.com/blog and devourtours.com. They have their blogs, all lots of them for every city, from all over Spain, Italy, France, and of course, North America with Boston, Washington, D.C., Niagara Falls, New York City, and more to come. Well, I want to say thank you again to our wonderful guests here. Matt, Nikki, Courtney, amazing recommendations from real New Yorkers who are there right now. It's almost 5 o'clock, so we know where they're headed. And Nikki's out there in the cold, so we'll let her get indoors and get warm to one of her favorite hot cocoa bars. Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you in New York. TakeWalks.com, DevourTours.com to find your great tours. And lastly, here before you sign off, I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick poll. What's our next destination we should cover? So I'm going to just throw that out there. I know people are jumping off, but if you have a quick second to answer our poll here, which destination would you like us to cover in the future? If you don't see the poll, just throw it in the chat. We're looking where to go. We've done Rome, we've done Madrid. Now we're over in New York City. And since you guys are all still on, what would you like to see next? Maybe Courtney, Nikki, Matt. Where do you think we should go?
I
Going to
vote
Ireland?
Portugal. I just
Yeah.
went to
Yeah.
Portugal.
Do
Yeah.
food tour in Portugal.
Yeah, that sounds good.
New
What about you,
Orleans.
Matt? New Orleans. Oh, you're always wanted to go to New Orleans. I think we did that one time. We did Mardi Gras, New Orleans. That's speaking of not avoiding crowds. That was a crazy one. We've got some good votes here. Looks like a lot of Ireland people. We got great tours out in Dublin. We're even doing day trips out to the Cliffs of Moher now. We've got Portugal. Obviously, we're in Lisbon. Some great food tours and sightseeing tours in Portugal. And of course, Spain, Italy. I think people have gotten a little bit already of that, but we have many more destinations than Rome and Madrid. We have Barcelona in Spain, San Sebastian, Sevilla, and if you can get over to Italy, or also outside of Rome, or in Venice, Florence, Pisa, Naples, Pompeii. Lots of great spots to visit. Thank you all again for joining us at Walks and Devour Tours. We hope to see you in New York. And until next time, enjoy the city. See you later. How do you say? Get out of here. Get out of town. That's my best New York accent. Bye, everybody.